The Weight of Gold and the Light of Truth. Alistair stood in the center of his marble foyer, his hands patting the pockets of his tailored suit. For the third time that morning, he had misplaced his keys. A younger version of himself would have been livid, viewing this lapse as a crack in his armor. But now, at 70, he simply smiled. He realized a fundamental truth. Forgetting keys does not mean one is less intelligent. It simply means the mind is busy sorting through grander things. Once, Alistair's mind was a steel trap of logistics and ledgers. He could recite the closing price of every stock in his portfolio and the birthday of every middle manager in his firm. Now, those numbers were fading into a soft gray mist. The trivial details of the empire he built were slipping away, replaced by a strange, newfound clarity regarding the people who operated within it. His young protege, Elias, rushed into the room, clutching a tablet. Elias was a whirlwind of data and deadlines, his face tight with the stress of the upcoming merger. Alistair couldn't remember the name of the firm they were acquiring. Was it Solari or Solaris? But he looked at Elias and saw something the young man hadn't even realized yet. The desperate need for a vacation and the fear of failure in his eyes. They arrived at the boardroom, a glass-walled cage overlooking the city. The air was thick with the scent of expensive coffee and ambition. Alistair sat at the head of the table. Across from him sat the rival CEO, a man whose name Alistair had forgotten 5 minutes after being introduced. The man spoke in a torrent of projections and synergy, his voice a rhythmic drone that failed to hold Alistair's attention. As the presentation reached its peak, the rival CEO leaned forward, his smile a bit too wide, his eyes darting toward the exits. Elias leaned in and whispered a correction to a figure on the screen, trying to shield Alistair from the embarrassment of a missed detail. The board members exchanged worried glances. They whispered about Alistair's fading edge and his slowed pace. "The deal is perfect," the rival's CEO insisted, his voice rising. Alistair didn't look at the graphs. He didn't look at the contract. He looked at the way the man's pulse throbbed in his neck, and the way he avoided looking at his own legal counsel. Alistair felt a sudden, sharp surge of intuition. He didn't need the data. He could feel the deceit radiating from the man like heat from a radiator. Alistair stood up, silencing the room. "The deal is off," he said firmly. The room erupted in gasps. Elias looked horrified, clutching the tablet as if it were a life raft. When asked for his reasoning, Alistair didn't cite the quarterly earnings or the market volatility. He simply said, "I have forgotten the numbers, but I have learned to read the man. Memory decreases, wisdom increases." Later that evening, the news broke. The rival firm had been hiding massive debts. The merger would have been a catastrophe. Alistair sat in his garden, the scent of jasmine filling the air. He couldn't remember what he had eaten for lunch, and he had forgotten where he left his reading glasses, but he felt more connected to the world than ever before. He was shedding the leaves of data to reveal the trunk of truth. He looked at an old photograph of his wife. He couldn't remember the name of the beach where it was taken, or the year they went, but as he looked at her smile, he felt the exact temperature of the wind that day and the profound, aching love that had defined his life. He realized that while his mind was losing its filing cabinet, his soul was expanding its horizon. Alistair realized that aging wasn't a process of subtraction, but of refinement. He was no longer a collector of facts, but a connoisseur of essence. He watched the sun dip below the city skyline, a billionaire who owned everything but valued only the intangible. He had traded his sharp memory for a deep understanding of the human heart,